Hello, and welcome to a live Kerfefe break on Deprogrammed with Keri Smith. I'm here with a special guest, my co-host from Wednesday nights, Mystery Chris. How are you, Mr. Chris?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm okay. We're having a little bit of internet problems. I'll just tell you guys right up front. I'm still on the road. Uh, we're in Lubbock though, and we're going to be home later today. But anyway, if my internet goes out, just hang tight with Mystery Chris and I'll be right back. There's some new internet here, and there's something weird going on. But whatever. We're here. How are you guys? How are you, Mystery Chris? What are you up to?
I'm turning to the old man. I started watching a lot of bird videos online. So there's people who have like cameras in these like bird houses, and birds will like lay nests and they'll raise the babies. So I'm like watching them raise babies, which is interesting. But one of the interesting things I found out was there's a bird called a cowbird, which is a parasite that will lay its egg in another bird's nest, allow that bird to raise that baby. And if that bird tries to destroy that egg or that baby, the cowbird will retaliate and kill one of its babies or eggs. Like,
What?
yes, this is real. It's an asshole.
How fascinating. So you're reading
So
about
yeah,
cowbird. How
I know.
interesting.
Yeah, what's
There's
happening
so
to me?
many
I don't know.
interesting
Watching Antiques
creatures out
Roadshow
there.
too. What?
Yeah. You're watching Antiques Roadshow and watching bird watching videos.
I got some prunes over here in the corner. Yeah.
I feel like we're at the tail end of Gen Z, or I am. Technically, are you at the very beginning of the millennials, technically?
I'm a millennial. Yeah.
You're what? You are?
I'm a millennial. Yeah.
But I feel like in spirit, you're Gen X. Sorry, I said Gen Z. I'm at the tail end of Gen X. I feel like in spirit, you're also Gen X.
Why do you say that?
Well,
I'm curious. I'm genuinely curious.
because you're more independent. You're an independence is a characteristic I relate to Gen X in terms of independence of thought, and also being good at surviving in the world, being an independent person, and uh, appreciative of diversity, like actual diversity of opinion, and actual liberalism, and actual equality and the law, those kind of things. I associate those more with Gen X now. I don't know why.
Okay, okay. So millennials are a bunch of zombies. I mean, is there much a difference between millennials and Gen Z in your view?
Pirate Tomsky says, because you're not a whiny crybaby. Yeah, millennials get a bad rap. I know technically you are one, and they're not you can't say everyone in a group is like this, but in general, I don't know. I think Gen Z is a little bit more some of them are like millennials and some of them are like Gen X. I don't know. It remains to be seen how they're going to wind up. You know, we've heard these studies that say they might be on route to being the most conservative generation since the greatest generation. I don't know if that's true or not, but I've definitely met some uh, if I meet a young person who's based, I think they're more likely to be Gen Z than a millennial. Don't you
Hmm.
think?
Yeah, I probably see that. I think it's not even so much of them being conservative, maybe just being kind of anti woke, because since that's kind of the dominant culture right now, and there's always been an aspect of youth culture that wanted to rebel against the dominant culture. And so I would think that a sizable number of Gen Z people are being turned on to the more anti woke movement since woke is everywhere.
Yeah, they're rebelling. Well, welcome. If you're a regular, I see a lot of folks I recognize in the chat. Hello, Z Highness, Lisa K, Pirate Tomsky Armada's here. Give it up for the pirate. And also Two Sisters in Some Yarn. I saw her in here, one of our other mods. Anne Pinkova from Politically Incorrect Knitters is here. Hello, guys. Adam Worrell, Recognized Night Train, a bunch of people. Thanks for hanging out with us. We're gonna get back on our regular schedule of videos now that my traveling ordeal is over. I will just say, Mystery Chris, you sent me the funniest text message because if you don't know it, our van, last time I did one of these was Monday, and I did a live stream from the van. I told you guys then that our van had sort of broken down. There was something wrong with either the overdrive or the transmission, and we could only go between like 10 miles an hour and 40 miles an hour, depending. And on average, we were doing like 30. And every mechanic in Montana that we tried to talk to about it, they said, oh, it sounds like it might be the transmission or the overdrive, but we can't see you for weeks. So just drive home slowly and pray, right? So we were doing that. And that itself was an ordeal, because try driving on the highway 30 miles an hour with your hazards on and waving. We were driving on the shoulder, my husband, as much as he could, and waving people over. For the most part, most people were very kind about that. But that was an ordeal. And then we got to see Nicole of the Mountain People, because she was on our route. We couldn't see all the people we planned to see. We couldn't see any of the sites. We had planned to go to Yellowstone. We were going to go do the Bear Mountain Trail and Highway, and we couldn't do any of those things because you can't go up a hill in that at 30 miles an hour. It drops down to 10 miles an hour. It's just terrible. So it was taking twice as long to get home. So anyway, long story short, couldn't see all the people we wanted to see, which is a bummer. But Nicole of the Mountain People was on our way, so we stopped to see her, and that was really fun. And then the very next day, the van broke down, like for good. The check engine light came on. We didn't think it was safe to drive it anymore, and we made other plans. I wrote this essay. It's on my Substack if you want to read it, because it was sort of about making the most of those unscripted moments in life, the things that we view as misfortunes or tragedies or what have you. And somebody says, I bet you guys saw a lot of this. It was a middle finger, Dion. We did have one person honk at us, which was weird because we weren't even in their way. We had already pulled over to the side and they honked. I was like, what are you doing? And that was when the van had actually broken down and we were just trying to get to the mechanic. But anyway, we had a beautiful evening, broken down, hanging out in Lafayette, Colorado. That's where we made it. It was gorgeous. It was super woke little town, but it was also gorgeous, even though it had a lot of rainbow signs everywhere and Black Lives Matter signs everywhere. It was all white people. And but beautiful gardens and little shops. And it was like, hey, if we're going to break down, this is a place to do it. Our gym was right there so we could take a shower, and the grocery store was right. It was great. It's like, this is where you want it. Instead of, if it had happened in Wyoming, would have been in the middle of nowhere probably. So rented a vehicle, and that itself was an ordeal because they won't let you do one-way rentals anymore. I guess it's really hard to get a one-way car rental now. Used to be you could get one. Now it's almost impossible. So we have to go back to Colorado in our rental. We had to do a round trip rental. We have to go back and get the van when it's finished. And anyway, we go to pick up the car the next day. We rented a big car because we had all of Anthony's music gear and equipment and everything. And we get there and they gave us a pickup truck. Like, oh, this is all we have. Sorry. I know you rented something different on the website, but so then we had to find all these tarps and things and bungees and try and strap everything down. And you sent me this text message of the guys from Dumb and Dumber on the back of that little moped. And you said, what's happening to you reminds me of the inspirational story of two other guys whose van broke down in Colorado.
It's true.
That had me cracking up. I was cracking up forever.
I was like, yeah, y'all should get a moped. That'd be fun.
Oh man, that text was really funny though. Thank you. So, yeah, you have the best humor, like Gen X. That's what So Crates McGoat says. Gen X has the best humor. Yeah. So, long story short, we are in Lubbock and returning home tonight, and videos will be back to the regular schedule with the exception of it being the 4th, of course. But I am doing a show Monday. So I'll say this. So Mystery Chris and I have a lot to talk about today. We're going to get into the Supreme Court news. But this coming week, I'm also going to have Kenny Zhu on the program. Kenny Zhu, you may remember, I've interviewed him before. He's He's been a part of the legal proceedings. He's Asian American. He's done a lot of interviews. He's been speaking out about the legal, up until now, discrimination against predominantly Asians, but this race-based discrimination at colleges. And I think he had a lot to do with this Supreme Court decision. I'm very happy to know him, and I'm very happy he's out there in the world doing what he does. He's going to be on the show. It's either going to be live on Monday or I'm going to pre-record it Monday to release later. But I'm very excited about talking with him. He's going to give us the ins and outs of the Supreme Court decision and also talk about his new organization for fighting racial bias. So tune in next week for, Adam, he is based for Kenny Zoo. But today, Misty, Chris, and I are going to go through some of the news and some of the hysterical reactions to the Supreme Court's decision yesterday. Why?
And also, I don't know if you've heard, I saw in the recommended feed on my YouTube thing that I think Supreme Court this morning struck down Biden's student loan thing too. So, yeah, bad day for Biden. Ouch.
They also, I didn't hear that yet about the student loans, but they also, didn't they pass a decision this morning saying you don't have to bake the cake anymore?
Yeah, I think something they decided in favor of the Christian baker. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're gonna go over that.
Twitter must be melting down.
Twitter is melting down. We're going to look at some of the more hysterical reactions. Yeah. But thanks for hanging out with us. If you like Deprogrammed, if you're a regular viewer and you want to support the show, and first of all, if you already support the show, thank you so much. It's a big help. It helps us continue to do this programming, and also to work on some of the comedy videos we have coming up. And if you want to support the show, we have a Patreon, a Locals, or you could become a member here at YouTube. I think it's like for $1 a month is the lowest amount, which is awesome. That helps out. And also we have a Subscribestar. People sometimes ask, what's the best platform if we want to support you financially? I would say Subscribestar, because they're the least censorious. They don't kick people off like Patreon does, and they're not as evil as YouTube. So we do have a Subscribestar. So yeah. It's somebody in here. Two Sisters says, support the show and fund Keri's ability to go over 40 miles an hour. we could do some funny memes with that. Let's get it up past 30 miles an hour. Get deprogrammed.
You got to do the Back to the Future thing. 88 miles per hour.
Oh man, it's been quite a couple of weeks. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to just let's pull up something from the non-biased CNN. I'm just kidding. But I do like reading leftist publications because I like to see how they frame things. So let's bring up this one. Just to give people an overview of what happened yesterday. It's huge news. Thank you for the super chat. Pyrotovsky, £5 says Supreme Court rules against affirmative action. With affirmative action hire, Ketanji Brown Jackson sitting right there. The Babylon Bee. That's hilarious.
I want to say, by the way, Babylon Bee is great. The Onion is not. And I'm not just saying that because I share political views with the people who run Babylon Bee. Like Babylon Bee, their articles tend to get at some kind of truth, whereas the Onion doesn't. Because I remember a few months ago, I checked out the Onion's Twitter, and it was so funny. There are like all these just random things, and there is no truth in it. And so Babylon Bee is doing things, in my view, that are in line with, say, like a Louis C.K. or Dave Chappelle or Chris Rock when they're in their prime, and how many of their jokes were uncovering some kind of truth that we're all laughing, going, "Oh yeah, that is true. That is true."
Yes, you know what it is, and see, it's so sad because it used to be that the Onion was really, remember around the time I was in college, the Onion was really funny. And what happened to them, I think, is what's happened. We've seen this happen in political parties, at corporations. Small mom and pop businesses. We've seen it happen in hobby groups like the knitting world and gaming. What happened is that woke ideology infiltrated. And when woke ideology, woke religion gets in there, it becomes the number one priority. Same thing happened at SNL. And then being funny comes subservient to that. And so the onion kind of, it's muzzled itself. It won't do certain types of, it won't make fun of certain sacred cows. So it's
That's
never going to
true.
make that joke, that affirmative action joke.
And honestly,
You know?
I never thought the onion was funny. I remember having friends
Really?
that loved it. And you're like, "Oh, you got to check this out." And I was like, "I don't get it. What's hilarious about this? Nothing."
You're harsh.
Yes,
Harsh.
someone has to be.
One of my favorite ones that I had on my fridge in college was this kindly looking old man, and it was an opinion piece. And now as a Christian, I guess, I don't know, I may not find it as, I don't know, I still think it's kind of funny because the humor was in his language. It was a kindly looking old man, and the headline was, "Why can't I sell any of these GD effing Bibles?" And then the whole piece was littered with bad words. The whole thing was like, "I don't understand why I can't unload any of these MFing Bibles. I go door to door. I'm trying to sell the good effing word." And it was just like curse word after curse word. That was the joke. It's like, maybe because you're cursing too much.
But I
You
think
don't
that's
think
why I
that's
didn't find it
funny?
funny, because it's just made up
Oh,
stories instead of taking something from the real world and positioning it in a way that makes you think, "Oh, wow, okay, that is true."
yeah. I guess you're right. It's more like that to me is like a character piece or something in the written form, like a sketch in written form. I don't know.
Yeah.
That was funny. Somebody laughed in chat. Pathetic comedic. Thank you. Why isn't anyone buying these MFing Bibles? Okay, never mind. Okay, let's let's bring it up. Here's the news from CNN. June 29th, 2023, Supreme Court affirmative action decision. Here's what you should know. Do you really trust CNN to tell you what you should know? I don't, but let's see what they say. Here's what you should know about the Supreme Court's landmark decision on affirmative action. The Supreme Court says that colleges and universities can no longer take race into consideration as a specific basis for granting admission. Do you guys understand? Let's put this in layman's terms. The Supreme Court just said, hey, guess what, colleges? You can't be racist anymore. That's what they said. You can't racially discriminate. Here, let me make this a little larger. You can't use race as a factor by which you discriminate against people. You can't make it a factor. Okay, can't be racist anymore. Okay, the Supreme Court says colleges and universities can no longer take race into consideration as a specific basis for granting admission, a landmark decision overturning longstanding precedent that has benefited Blacks and Latino students in higher education. Chief Justice John Roberts, by the way, has it benefited them? Has it? We're going to talk about that in a second. Just because they're higher, but just because it's led to higher percentages of Black and Latino students in these colleges doesn't mean it's actually benefited them. And I want to break that down with you later. I hate that phrase, break that down, but that's what we're going to do. Okay. Chief Justice John Roberts wrote the opinion for the conservative majority, saying that Harvard and University of North Carolina admissions programs violated the Equal Protection Clause because they failed to offer measurable objectives to justify the use of racism, actually. He said the programs involved racial stereotyping and had no specific endpoint. That is true. The opinion claims that the court was not expressly overturning prior cases authorizing race-based affirmative action, racism-based affirmative action, and suggested that how race has affected an applicant's life can still be part of how their application is considered. So you see that last part there? It can still be part of how their application is considered. Here's what you should know. Who dissented? Justice Sonia Sotomayor, joined by Justice Elena Kagan and Ketanji Brown, Jackson. It's all the women. Sorry.
Yeah.
Interesting. They issued a fiery dissent saying that the opinion, quote, rolls back decades of precedent and momentous progress, end quote. Really? In a demonstration of the controversial nature of the case, the justices read their dissents from the bench for the first time since 2019. Exemptions to the decision. The ruling says that the U.S. military service academies can continue to take race into consideration as a factor in admissions, meaning the U.S. military, which is taxpayer funded, okay, the government, the military, can continue to use racism in their admissions decisions. During oral arguments, Solicitor General Elizabeth Prelogar stressed the unique interests of the military and argued that race-based admissions programs further the nation's compelling interest of diversity.
Does the military even need to take race into factor when admissions? Because it pretty sure there's a lot of black people who go into the military because they don't have a lot of other options, so they choose not to follow other options.
Maybe it's because they're giving preferential treatment to white people. Then they want to keep doing that.
Might be right.
Look, we have to keep discriminating because we're not getting enough with white applicants anymore.
We need generals. We gotta avoid.
So, let's talk about it. There have been. I want to show some of the reactions from people, both some of the celebrations, and we can also look at some of the hilarious meltdowns, including from Biden, who apparently, obviously, supports racism. But I think this case it's not only huge because it's landmark, and that word gets misused a lot, but it is landmark. It's very important that the Supreme Court has finally said, hey, we shouldn't have been doing this. This is wrong. Or we should not continue doing this. It's wrong to discriminate based on race. It's certainly wrong for all the Asian students who it primarily affects Asian students. If you look at the stats, Asian students are held to a much higher standard. Why is it fair that the average Asian applicant to Harvard, for example, has to score so much higher than a white student or a black student or a Latina student, Latinx? Why do they have to score so much higher to be able to be considered? It's deeply unfair. And social justice says unfairness is okay. Racism is okay. Race-based discrimination is okay because they view people as collectives, as groups, not as individuals. Social justice is not liberal. It's not individualist. It doesn't view people. Liberalism is what helped us end segregation. It's what helped us end slavery. It's what helped us end, making progress towards ending racism, viewing people as collectives, viewing people as racial groups, treating them as members of a group. Liberalism and individualism did that. And what does social justice do? Social justice is the opposite. It is racism. It is collectivism. It says, hey, it's okay to discriminate racially against all these individual Asians because of their race. It's okay to do that because as a group, Asians are so privileged when it comes to academics. They're so much smarter as a group on average. So it's okay for us to discriminate against them because we want to push equity, right? We want to try and force things to look the exactly proportionate or even disproportionate in favor of certain groups on paper. And because our end goals are just, it's okay to racially discriminate. That's what social justice says. That's my rant.
It's weird how they treat the Asians too, because when it comes to these college admission stuff, they usually leave out the fact that it's Asians that are getting discriminated against quite a bit, particularly with the Ivy League schools. But then when it came to the Stop Asian Hate stuff, they were all about pro-Asian and pro-Asian pride and all this. Just they left out that it was black people attacking Asians, which is weird because it's like that one moment is pretty much the only moment I could think Asians were included in the social justice push, this woke stuff. But otherwise, they're just completely ignored because they're
Yes.
kind of considered white adjacent somehow, but not. It's just
Yes.
it's very bizarre. Like they can't make up their mind what they want to do with the Asians and how they can best try to get Asians to get on board with the woke stuff, but not rebel
Yeah.
against it either. So I mean, it's very weird.
It is very weird. Well, hypocrisy is a feature, not a bug of social justice, of woke. They contradict themselves all the time. None of their rules, they don't follow any of their own so-called rules, you know, standards of behavior. They don't follow any of it, and they're absolute hypocrites. I used to be one of them. I know what I know what I'm talking about. They do elaborate mental gymnastics to try and make it make sense, but it doesn't make sense. They basically use they use all identity groups, and they use Asians in whatever way works for them at the moment. So when it comes to if it's beneficial for them to talk about Asians as being, people of color and a minority group who are part of this big social justice tent, this umbrella, if it makes sense for them in the moment to do that, they will do that. But then if it makes sense for them to push Asians over with white people as the horrible oppressor in the moment, if it makes sense for them to do that, to justify something like this racism, they will do that. And then they'll say, oh, like you just pointed out, Mr. Chris, they call them white adjacent at those times. Oh, they're part of the horrible they're basically white, okay?
None of this makes
So
any sense. That's why I'm always
it
surprised
doesn't.
that this woke stuff has gone on for as long as it has, because it's so inherently contradictory that I would think that the only people who would truly still hold these views were people who are either mentally unbalanced or grifters. And that the people who
Yeah.
aren't in that would quickly wise up because they start to see the contradictions, which is what's happened with you. You started to see the contradictions with inherent with that ideology, and you start to move away from it. But this
Yes.
thing's, I'm not sure. It still seems like it's kind of going strong, although you could make an argument that it's weakening a bit. But still, there's too many people that still buy into it, and I don't understand how.
It's what you said. There are the dishonest grifters, to use that word. A grifter, in my opinion, that's another word that gets overused and used incorrectly, but it does actually mean something. I think it means con artist. We've had that word for a long time. It means snake oil salesman. A grifter is someone who says things they don't really believe in order to gain money or fame or power. And there are a lot of grifters in all different kinds of belief systems because they take advantage of the sincere beliefs of others. There's grifters in Christianity, con artists in Christianity, they're in woke, they're in anti-woke, they're in any belief system. And so yes, woke has a lot of those people who they don't care about oppression. They just want to be the people oppressing. And so set those people aside. Then you've got the ones who what did you say? They're mentally handicapped?
mentally,
Is that what you said?
mentally unbalanced.
Mentally imbalanced. Okay. Maybe it's a
But
little
yeah,
bit
mentally handicapped works
uncharitable.
too.
It's a little uncharitable. There's some very intelligent people in cults. There are. Look at Heaven's Gate. That's a great example. There are some people
Well,
with
you can
high
still be
IQs in
crazy,
cults.
yeah, and smart. I
Yes,
mean,
you
yeah, you can
can
be
still be.
intelligent, but it's just this deep need to have power over other people to make up for some deeper insecurity that they're feeling.
Yeah. I think it's that there's something going on mentally where when you are in a cult, where slowly over time you start to turn off your critical thinking. And it's because of something psychological that's going on and some kind of pressure, social pressure, and maybe something within you, this need to fit in or this need to be a pleaser, be agreeable. That's why there's a lot of women, I think, in social justice because they're women on average or higher in agreeableness. They're pleasers, more likely. They're more likely to be pleasers than men anyway. And I certainly was. And then there's this thing where, like, if anyone on the left is watching this episode today, and I hope they are, and anyone who's still in social justice or woke who thinks, deprogrammed is terrible, that I'm terrible or you're terrible, I hope they would think about how their big heart might be being used against them. Maybe you're being manipulated. Your empathy is being manipulated. Take your emotions out for a second and look at the facts. Do you really think it's okay? Do you really think it's okay to judge and treat people differently on the basis of race? Because that is racism. It is racist to make decisions about a person based on what race they are. To say, oh, well, because your race is Asian, you're going to have to do twice as well as other races in order to get into this college. Your SAT score is going to have to be double, to be considered. Why? Because you're Asian and too many of you have high scores and it's not fair.
It's like they're not thinking of people as humans, because any human in that situation is going to start feeling resentment. There's naturally going to be a pushback against that, but yet that's not something that factors into the people who support policies like this, because they're just thinking about the policy and its stated benefits, not the actual effects, and not think about people who have emotions and motivations and hopes and fears. It's just like they're just things. They're not people, and they're just looking at numbers on spreadsheets or whatever, not realizing that these are human beings.
They're trying to be social engineers. They don't even realize it, that they're trying to socially engineer things. Like we would prefer it if 50% of people who work in tech are women. Well, hey, do the women prefer it?
Well, that's one of the things that pissed me off about the BLM stuff, because I remember, like, during the Summer of Love and riots in 2020, there were a bunch of Antifa types going around professing that blacks wanted to get rid of police in their neighborhoods. And I was thinking, like, did you go around and ask these blacks whether they wanted to get rid of police? I mean, you keep saying you're a big believer in democracy, but you're not practicing it.
Yeah, they don't. I don't think they're very disconnected from themselves at times, I think. Like, not to use some hippy dippy language, but they're not living consciously. I don't think you can be a true believer in woke ideology and be conscious. You're not very conscious. I wasn't. You're just sort of going with the flow. You're not looking at things deeply.
Right, because it has to do more with them than other people. It's not about other people. It's about them satisfying some deeper psychological need, an urge.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's talk about for a second that phrase that I pointed out in the CNN piece that said that affirmative action has benefited Black and Latino people, for example.
Does the president say Latinx?
Latinx. They should have said Latinx.
Is that still a term being used? Is that still a thing?
It is. Oh, it's mostly by white people. It's so I don't think that's necessarily true. Let me see if I can articulate what I mean. I haven't actually voiced this yet. I was just thinking about it. It's not to say that it benefits Black and Latino people. You're only taking into account the fact that more Black and Latino people get in under these racist admissions policies. But does it actually benefit them? Does it make them work harder? Does it help them work harder? Does it help them score higher? Does it help them develop the skills and knowledge that they need to do better? And the same thing for women with affirmative action. Does it help us? Does it really help? Does it help? Let's say we get into a program. Let's say we get accepted to Harvard and we're in one of these groups that has, quote unquote, benefited from affirmative action. One of the things it does is it makes us doubt ourselves and our own merit, because you're like, I wonder if I got in because I was in one of those groups. If you're a sincere person, if you're a con artist, you don't care. You'll use whatever to get anywhere, But if you're a sincere person, it makes you doubt. It leads to imposter syndrome, where you're like, I don't even know if I deserve to be here. Secretly, you're wondering. And worse than that, let's say you do deserve to be there and you know what your scores were and you know that you're qualified to be there, but everyone else thinks you're a diversity hire. That sucks. What if you do deserve to be there, but because you're in this system that benefits people who look like you, who are women or Black or Latino. And now you know that everyone's looking at you like that person doesn't deserve to be here. They got here because of their race or their sex. That sucks
Yeah.
to do that to people.
I just finished Clarence Thomas's autobiography, and he talked about how when he was younger, he was a leftist and Marxist. And when he got admitted to Harvard as part of their affirmative action program, one of the things that started causing him to move towards conservatism is that he noticed that whites didn't believe he was deserving of getting to Harvard. They start questioning his merit and his intelligence. And he, again, like you're saying, dealing with the imposter syndrome and all these other things. And so he started moving to conservative position regarding affirmative action. And so I've seen articles going, of Clarence Thomas ruling against affirmative action, but he was a beneficiary of it. And I was like, but he changed. That's the point. Like, he benefited from it, yes. But then he realized it caused a lot of stress on him professionally because of the way people were perceiving him for benefiting from this thing.
Yes, it sucks. Adam says, like Sowell, like Thomas Sowell. Yeah, imagine being Thomas Sowell, who's one of, I think, the smartest humans on earth. and so much smarter than us and all the white people who have comments about how you should support affirmative action. Imagine being him, being one of the smartest people in the room, and all those white liberals thinking he got there because of affirmative action. That sucks.
It's funny. In Clarence Thomas's autobiography, he talks about a conversation he had with Thomas Sowell. And Clarence Thomas, when he was talking about fears of coming out as conservative, that he's going to be labeled Uncle Tom and by the media and other people. And he's telling Thomas Sowell this, and Thomas Sowell goes, well, at least they won't call you a transvestite. I was like, Thomas Sowell, you're funny.
So today, by the way, is Thomas Sowell's 93rd birthday. Can we
give
it up in the chat with some birthday
that's
emojis?
why they made the decision. Yeah.
Isn't that amazing? Did you know that? He's 93
I didn't know today was his birthday. God bless him.
Happy birthday to Thomas Sowell. I wish we had some birthday music. He lived long enough, as one of my Facebook friends did a post about it. He has lived long enough to see an end to affirmative action in this way. Right now, it's just at colleges, not at military colleges, but what a landmark decision, and for him to be here to see that, that's amazing. Happy birthday to Thomas Sowell.
Yeah.
Couple of things in the chat. Brahma Bull is here. Hello, Brahma Bull. Someone I wanted to see on my road trip that we didn't get to see. So next time, Brahma Bull says affirmative action doesn't benefit minorities. It caused people to question things like was my surgeon, lawyer, or pilot actually qualified, or were they part of a quota? Yes, it causes so much mistrust.
Has there ever been like a case where someone went in for like open heart surgery and saw a white doctor like, do you have any black doctors around? Like, has that ever happened in history of open heart surgery? Like, another white guy.
I care about diversity. Can I get a black lesbian little person in here to do the surgery? Because I
cut to their tombstone.
Right, like I want to live, but I also really care about diversity. No, I don't think it's ever happened. That's an answer to your question. There was one other chat I saw go by. Oh, Pirate Tomsky with the jokes. MC Chris was a diversity hire, so Keri's in trouble now.
Dun dun dun.
Dun dun. Here's the funny part. I myself was a diversity hire here. Dun, dun. And nepotism for both of us. I hired myself and you.
Whoa.
Mind blown. Show's over. Thank you, John Thomas, for the super chat. $5. Thank you, sir. It says social justice is rooted in Marxism. Yes, it is. Placing any qualifier in front of justice perverts it. Yes. All stand equal before the law. Yes. Justice doesn't need a qualifier. If it's true justice, social justice woke people, they do this with a lot of words. They put qualifiers in it when it doesn't mean the thing. So this is if English is not your native language, let me explain this for a second. For example, in the knitting wars, the social justice knitting wars, a lot of the woke knitters would say things like, this is radical kindness, because it's not kindness. It's bullying and hatefulness. So they would call it radical kindness. It's a trick of the language, right? Same thing with social justice, because it's not justice. So they're like, this is social justice. I think it's not justice. That's a for any non-native speakers, that explains that. Hey, Tara, thank you so much. Yarn Chicken and Shit for $19.99. Thanks, lady. By the way, Tara here, she knitted one of the oogly cat hat patterns. She knitted one of the hats that I was sent for Blocked Magazine's feature this month. It's a free knitting and crochet magazine. They push back against the woke, and they have lots of fun patterns. And they are reclaiming the cat hat this month. They have 3 different patterns, and you can find them on Instagram at Blocked Mag, and that's got links to where you can download the magazine for free. And anyway, this lady is very talented, and she knitted one of the hats, and I love it. Anyway, okay, Yarn Chicken and Shit. I was in the room when my boss was talking about promoting more women to senior leadership roles and how he has worked on that. As a recent promotee, I started wondering if I had actually earned it. It sucks. Yes.
Yeah.
Damn, that's what I'm talking about. That blows. Now it gives you that imposter syndrome where you're like, I just want to get it on my merit. Like, I don't want you to deny me anything because of my sex or race. And I also don't want you to give me anything because of my sex or race. That sucks.
I can't remember if I told you or not, but at work, one of the diversity, equity, inclusion meetings we had was led by a biracial woman, half black, half white. And she was talking about how the position she held prior to the current one, she found out that she was a product of a diversity hire, and how she was disappointed in that, but she kept telling herself that she was the most qualified person for that role. And I just thought it was weird, the irony of the whole situation of her struggling on camera to justify being the product of a diversity hire while she's leading a meeting that's encouraging diversity hiring. It was just like the irony was like lost in her, but you could tell she was deeply affected and saddened finding out that she was a diversity hire. It was so bizarre.
It is. It's like they can't. I think because they're in the ideology for emotional or psychological reasons, some people have trouble reasoning their way out of it. Even though she's gutted that she's a diversity hire. You know what I mean? It's like, but they don't know how to reason their way out of that, out of supporting it.
Yep.
Okay, just something really quick before we move on, because I just talked about Tara and the cat hats. Thank you to Sisters and Some Yarn. Here's the link where you can grab the new issue of Blocked Magazine. And yes, there are photos inside of my husband and I modeling the 3 different hats. And that was fun. And then Anne Pinkova's channel is called Politically Incorrect Knitters. I know a lot of you watch that. She says, Tara's got a new podcast and it is the bomb. I'm out of the loop. Somebody throw me the link for that. I want to go listen. Put the link in the chat. And then Yarn Chicken and Shit says it pissed me off because I deserved it. But it was deflating to hear that. Yeah, that sucks. That's like, you know what that makes me think of, Tara? It's like when Biden said when he was talking about his VP picks and he had not yet announced to his that it was going to be Kamala. And he basically said something, he made an announcement like, I don't know who it's going to be yet, but I know it's going to be a woman. And then I'm like, oh, that blows. Like, whoever that woman is, when he announces, I was the best woman. Like, wow, what an insult, you know? Like, why do that to her? I don't even like Kamala Harris, but wow, that was so rude.
She doesn't care. She just drinks all day.
Here's the link if you guys want to check out it's Yarn Chicken and Shit here on YouTube. I gotta go check it out. That's the new podcast. Okay. Thank you guys. Okay, so should we look at some of the reactions?
Yeah, let's get in it.
And then get to some of your links? Okay. I want to start with some of the positive reactions because I saw some pretty cool things here. Let me just make this a little larger. Can you see it?
Yes.
Kind of. So I just tweeted about the Supreme Court decision, but I bookmarked some of these because I wanted to come back to these later. So here. Here's one. Here's some of the celebratory tweets about this, and this is from Z Van Fleet, who has a new book coming out called Mao's America Book. Look at the bio here. Chinese by birth, American by choice, a survivor of Mao's cultural revolution and a defender of liberty. And you can pre-order the book there. So Z Van Fleet says, I am so happy to be at the Supreme Court to celebrate its ruling that the Harvard and UNC race-based admission policy is unconstitutional. The ruling is a victory not only for Asian Americans, but for all Americans. Yes, it is a victory for the American dream. Yes. You go. I love it. Okay, let's see some more positive ones. Azra Nomani. Azra, if you don't know, has a book out called Woke Army. And I want to interview her at some point. I've been following her for a little bit now. And so she's got a video here, but she says, breaking, we won. The U.S. Supreme Court rules in favor of equality, the American dream, and Asian American students and families. The justices rule for students for fair admissions in its landmark cases against Harvard University and the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Okay. That's awesome. Now look at this one. You guys will recognize this funny guy, Rob Schneider, the comedian. He's based. He's one of the few based celebrities. He says, I wish my Filipino mother, Pilar, would have lived to see the day when Asian Americans were no longer discriminated against in universities in America for simply being Asian. That day has come. Thank you, U.S. Supreme Court. Hashtag go Pinoy. That's awesome. That's so cool. And then Kenny Zhu, who I mentioned I'm going to have on the show next week, who's a friend of the show, he's got a post up saying, now that race preferential admissions is legally illegitimate, I'm instructing my organization to go after the next 3 tenets of DEI. DEI being diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is a disgusting, racist part of social justice. He says, 1, we're going to do bias training. We're going to go after bias training that blames innocents for being racist. We're going to go after diversity statements that strangle free speech. Those crazy Maoist statements that they make people do in their workplace and stuff. Gross. And he's going to go after teaching CRT in schools. Awesome. Now here we get into some of the negative and the funny ones. Okay. This tweet went viral. Erica Marsh. Now, she goes by Erica Report on Twitter, and if you look at her, she's got a ton of followers, a ton of likes on every post. Why are you laughing?
Because I just read it.
Wait, you read it. Read it out loud.
Today's Supreme Court decision is direct attack on Black people. No Black person will be able to succeed in a merit-based system, which is exactly why affirmative action-based programs were needed. Today's decision is a travesty. Do you hear yourself? This is
no, they don't.
This is like when Joe Biden said that what was it? He said that poor kids were just as bright and talented as white kids. Like,
yes,
it's, like,
it's a faux pas. They accidentally say what they mean.
Yeah, like,
yeah. So the when I first saw this, the person who shared it and commented on it was Prince Carlton, And he quoted her, Erica Report, this white woke lady who, if you go to her profile, she's apparently done. See, some people are saying she's satire, but I don't think so. I know it's hard to tell in this day and age. But her bio says proud Democrat, former field organizer to elect President Biden, volunteer for the Obama Foundation. She, her, heart. And if you scroll through, it's not funny. It's not satire. Like this is a real woke Democratic operative. She has 131,000 followers. Like she, even if she were satire, somebody in the chat had a great point earlier, and I bookmarked it. Lissa K said, while it was probably just rage bait, what Erica Marsh tweeted was the truth about how the left thinks. And that is exactly right. I don't think it is satire, but even if it were, this is what they think. The racist, woke, social justice left, they think that no Black person can succeed based on merit, that Black people are so feeble and incapable and dumb that they need a racist system by, these benevolent white superiors to help them. It's so freaking gross.
Just ignore the NBA.
What?
Just like, oh, this is 75% Blacks in the NBA, but, whatever.
But, so the person who first shared this was Prince Carlton, and he says, this is what white liberals think of you. We've been succeeding. And my only correction to this would be, or disagreeing with him, is that they're not really liberal. I know they think they are, so I get why he's saying that, but they're not liberal. Liberals don't support liberalism. Let's say liberalism doesn't support racism. It doesn't support racial discrimination, and it doesn't support looking down your nose at Black people like this and believing that Black people are inferior, or that no Black person can succeed based on merit. When I saw this, I immediately thought of Thomas Sowell, whose birthday is today, because he's, as I said, one of the smartest humans, I think, alive. And I was like, Thomas Sowell would like a word with you, Erica Marsh. Like, how dare you? You know what I mean? How dare you, you woke, wine-sipping, latte-drinking lady. White lady.
I wonder, did she get any pushback from people on the left? Because listen, there are some people on the left, like if she had excluded that part in yellow, then I think she could have gotten away with that from less criticism. But with that, I think there'd still be some people on the left that would have a problem with that. What do you think?
I think I didn't look to see if she got any pushback from the left. But I think your point is valid, is that they absolutely believe this, but they don't like to say it this overtly. They don't like it when it's spelled out this way. They're much more covert about their feelings about Black people. So she probably did get some pushback from people who are like, hey, that's not exactly the way to say it, Erica. Like,
these are okay, pets, so and
here,
all, but you don't.
Yeah. So actually, let me stop for a second, because I didn't realize Erica Marsh has done an update. She's real, guys. She's not satire. She's trying to now explain her tweet where she said no Black person will ever succeed based on merit. Really? No Black person? And to our point earlier, I didn't quite finish trying to explain what I meant. Here's the thing. When you have to fight for something, when in a merit-based system, you get better, whether that's a merit-based system based around intelligence or athletic ability or being a musician, whatever it is. If you're being judged based on how well you do on testing or playing your guitar or throwing a basketball or football, see how much I know about sports, throwing a basketball, shooting a basketball. If you're being tested on those things, if you're being judged on those things and not on your race, not on your sex, then you're going to work harder. It's going to push you. And so I think actually affirmative action programs have hurt young girls, Black kids, Latino kids, because there's this sort of like, well, I don't have to try as hard. Do you know what I mean? Like, without even
Hmm.
thinking about it, it's sort of, if you're not having to try as hard, as somebody pointed out in the chat, a lot of these schools that were doing race-based admissions, they might have higher acceptance rates of students in these different oppressed groups, but they don't have, that doesn't track through graduation. So it's also doesn't help you to get into a program or a school where you don't qualify to be there, and then you have to drop out or you fail out. And what does that do to your psyche? Unless the
Yeah,
school is also now fixing the grades for you, which some of them probably started
yeah.
doing, you know?
But this is also
Okay,
contributing to
so
the lack of meaning that a lot of people are feeling today, because I think that's a huge psychological issue going on in our society. But when you're constantly handing people things that they don't have to work for, then you're going to get a lot of people who aren't feeling that fulfillment that naturally comes from working hard to earn things. That's how we derive meaning in our lives, by being able to earn and raise families, provide for them, and protect them. But you're taking that all away. And so no wonder you're getting all these people who have to take all these antidepressants and anti-anxiety drugs.
yeah, yeah, I think you're right. It doesn't help people, it hurts people. Let's just do individualism. Let's do merit-based system, meritocracy, and let people thrive. Quit trying to social engineer everything. Let people be individuals. Okay, so here's Erica Marsh trying to clarify her tweet. Why are you laughing?
That's the MAGA part. It was like, wow, it didn't take very long to get to the MAGA part. Just
Can you read this?
allow me to clarify this tweet, which is being manipulated for propaganda and misinformation by ultra MAGA. What the hell is ultra MAGA? Is that a condom? What is that? I don't know. Where can I
The
find
new
some?
beer. Don't
Ultra
like Bud
MAGA.
Light? Is Bud Light too feminine for you? Try Ultra Maga.
She goes on. The intention of my tweet is to highlight that prior to affirmative action, there existed a supposedly merit based system for Black individuals to gain admission to colleges. However, these institutions employed racial profiling to prevent Black individuals from attending under the guise of this merit system. I want to emphasize that my statement in no way suggests that Black individuals are less intelligent than people of other races.
Okay, moron. Here's what here's what moron is doing for us. She's saying because racism existed, we should continue to be racist. That's what she's saying. That doesn't make any sense. The answer to racist admissions based racist admissions in the past is to end those racist admissions policies. It's to end them. Okay? Which is what we've done. It's not to say, let's continue being racist, but now let's be racist against these races, against Asian people. That's not, you don't fix racism with racism. I cannot stand it when the woke use this. They use it I've seen them use this in so many ways. It's a dumb person's argument. Discrimination existed, so let's discriminate. What? Racism existed, so let's be racist. What are you talking about? Sexism existed, so let's be sexist. What? So is it bad then? Do you think it's bad? Do you think racism is bad because you're saying let's do it? It's bad and it happened. Let's keep doing it. What? Okay.
Yeah, makes no sense. But like I said, these mentally unwell and grifter type people just keep rationalizing it somehow. So whatever.
Yeah. It's crazy. Night Train says, I, for one, am tired of Whitey always holding me down. Whitey is a great 70s word. We should bring back Whitey.
The man keeping me down.
The man. Okay. What are some other great 70s words that we should bring back? Whitey.
Jive turkey.
What they jive turkey. I think they used to call ladies what was it? Not chicken heads. Something like Was it cat? Oh, cats, just for guys. That's maybe a Chicago 70s word. Cats, like cool cats. Anyway.
Home skillet.
Okay, so then one other thing I wanted to show. So we saw that crazy response from Erica. That just somebody in my comments was like, she might be satire, she might be fake person. So don't highlight this. Well, excuse me. As I said, even if this is a satire account, which I don't think it is, or even if she's a fake person who's created by some Democratic operative, whatever, that's what the woke people think. And that's why I'm highlighting it, because it's very rare that you see it spelled out so honestly, but they really think that about Black people.
Yeah, still, it doesn't make their side look good, even if it was, like you said, a Democrat operative or something. It'd be like a conservative person purposely making a super racist, Twitter account and like constantly talking about how much they love Donald Trump. Like, that's not going to help the image of Trump and
Yes.
Trump supporters. So,
Yes. Okay, so let's look for a second at Biden, because Biden has 2 Twitter accounts, right? He's got his Biden account and he's got his POTUS account. And why are you laughing?
The pride stuff. Doesn't give a crap about any of this. You know he doesn't. You know he's probably said a lot of homophobic stuff in private.
This looks like a parody account because of the pride thing up there.
But it's like I said, it's hard to tell these things.
It's not a parody account, but it looks like it. Who has that on their banner? It's such a parody. It's so cringe. Here's the president. Happy Pride Month. Okay.
And it's in front of the White House logo. Like that's just
also because he's got all the new colors on there. You know, somebody was like, hey, make sure you get black on there for Black people and brown for brown people, which, by the way, those are not sexualities. Why are they on the pride flag? It doesn't make any sense. And down at the bottom, you got the pink and white and blue for trans people. Also not a sexuality. What? Anyway.
Maybe it's for the white women who are only attracted to Black men, like the Kardashians.
For people who are attracted to Black
men. Black sexual. What we call Blackosexual.
There's got to be a word for that. Okay. Let's scroll down. So his whole profile is cringe.
I thought of a word, should I say?
Okay. And he's all, what'd you say?
I thought of a word, should I say it?
A word for white women who like Black men?
Yeah. Should I say it?
Is it bad?
I don't know.
Will we get banned?
You never know. Let me say it.
Is it funny?
Negrophilia.
That's not bad. That could be I could see them using that word.
Yeah.
They probably do use that word.
Let's get that started.
In a bad way. I think this is better. This is more 70s. Chocolate. Thank you. Thank you, Robert Lowry. Another mod in the chat bringing the laughs. Choco-sexual. Okay. Do you guys know that Mystery Chris only likes white chocolate, which I think is kind of racist? It's true, though. He only likes...
Just like people.
Stop it! It is true. He only likes white chocolate.
And, yes, I'm a white chocolate supremacist. I admit that. Dark chocolate's gross.
White... You think regular chocolate's gross?
It's disgusting.
What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? Okay, here we go. President Biden. So he's on here whining about all the Supreme Court decisions recently, because here at the top, he's upset about the student loan forgiveness plan. Unthinkable. The fight isn't over. I'll have more to announce when I address the nation this afternoon. Unthinkable.
After my nap.
After my nap. Okay, we'll go down. He's talking about, I want to get down to his several tweets yesterday about the
Supreme Court he doesn't do any of these tweets himself. There's no way.
Oh, I know.
White House staffers doing it.
Biden's team, right? Back when I worked in entertainment and I was woke myself, I got to meet some of Obama's speechwriters because I was working with comedian Margaret Cho, and we were doing something with Cal Penn, the actor who
Mhm.
gave up. He stopped acting for a while so he could work for Obama. And Margaret got invited to the White House for something, and while we were there, we had dinner with Cal and like one of the speechwriters, and it was just interesting to talk about speech writing and how they approach it. And one of the Obama speechwriters was saying they actually really admired the George W. Bush speechwriters and looked at them for how to craft things. I thought that was crazy. It wasn't partisan. They just looked at how to sell and manipulate in language, right?
Yeah.
It's not
Wasn't there like
red
some
or blue.
controversy a few years ago that like Michelle Obama had some speech she ripped off from some Republican? I can't remember what the details was, but
Oh, that sounds vaguely familiar. Okay. Okay, so the original one I was thinking of, I don't know if it was on the POTUS one or if it was on this one, but here, we'll read this. We'll read a couple of them because he tweeted about this a lot yesterday. Here he says, for decades, the Supreme Court recognized a call freedom to be racist. No, he didn't say that, but he could have. He says, for decades, the Supreme Court recognized a college's freedom to decide how to build a diverse student body and provide opportunity. How to be racist. Today, the court walked away from that racist precedent, effectively ending affirmative action racism in higher education. I strongly disagree with this decision because I support racism. There you go. That's what that is. Here's the one I saw. Our colleges are stronger when they are racially diverse and racist.
Why?
Yeah, why? And America is stronger because we are tapping into our full range of talent with racism. Today's Supreme Court decision is not the last word. We're going to keep being racist. We cannot let today's Supreme Court decision be a permanent setback for the country. We need to remember that the promise of America is big enough for everyone to succeed, except for the Asians we want to discriminate against, who have to work twice as hard and get twice the scores. Not big enough for them. We want to keep discriminating against those Asians. What?
It's like, they don't even need to go to college, though. They need to get back to working on those railroads.
Stop. He's that old.
Yes.
That's the work of my administration, racism. And I will always fight for it, racism. So while the court, he keeps going.
But this is like isn't there like a Twitter account of like women taking L's? Like there needs to be one of Biden taking L's, which is basically all these tweets in the last 2 days, just L after L after L. I love it.
It's L after L. I love it. Oh gosh, his whole Twitter feed is just whining about all of this. Okay, while the court can render a decision, it cannot change what America stands for. Racism. That's what he's saying. America is an idea of opportunity and of leaving no one behind, except the Asians that we want to discriminate against. We have never fully lived up to it, but we have never walked away from it, and we will not walk away from it now. He's talking about racism. Okay, so let's watch this little clip he wants us to watch. He says, today I want to offer some guidance to our nation's colleges as they review their admission systems after today's Supreme Court decision. They should not abandon their commitment to ensure student bodies of diverse backgrounds and experience that reflect all of America. So he means racism.
So today I want to offer some guidance to our nation's colleges as they review their admission systems after today's decision. Guidance that is consistent with today's decision. They should not abandon, let me say this again, they should not abandon their commitment to ensure student bodies of diverse backgrounds and experience that reflect all of America. What I propose for consideration is a new standard, where colleges take into account the adversity a student has overcome when selecting among qualified applicants. So today I want to offer some guidance to our nation's colleges as they review.
So he's basically
So it's just
saying,
encouraging
continue.
victim. It's just like everyone's going to talk about how much of the victim are on their applications.
Yes. Everyone's going to talk about it in their essay. Being a half Black, half Latinx, queer, trans, bullied, oppressed
But
group.
if you're
like
like
a
white,
woman.
though, even if you're like a white dude, you won't be able to use your race or gender, but you can start saying like, oh, I was abused, or I struggle with depression and all these other things. So it's almost like a way of them being able to filter in the right people who are going to be even more open to woke indoctrination happening on college campuses. So it's
Yeah. This is just so everybody, and I know so many white people now, just anecdotally, who will go deep, deep into their ancestry to try and find one Native American person so they can have a fair playing field when they apply. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't begrudge anybody that, even Elizabeth Warren.
Elizabeth Warren.
I get it. She thought being a woman wasn't oppressed enough. She had to dig back to, what was she, 0.0000000% Native American. I get it, Elizabeth. I get it. John Thomas, thank you for the super chat. $10, thank you. Says, not the only L, Mystery Chris, not the only L for the cultural Marxists at the court this week. Can't be forced to work on your Sabbath, Sunday in that case, and can't be forced to make a website. Interesting.
I'm familiar with that.
This is the bake the cake answer. We have to pull this one up and look at this next. I have a lot I want to talk about today, though, and I don't know if we have time to do all of it. So let's quit looking at Biden. Basically, he just cried a lot about this and all the other decisions and said a bunch of racist stuff. I don't know how anybody who voted for him is still happy about that. Are you still happy about it? Actually, this is a great opportunity. I had somebody, I was on a friend's Facebook wall the other day, and somebody said something in seriousness. He said, Biden's been doing a great job. And I asked him, like, what do you mean? Like, what has he done specifically that you think is great? I'm not being sarcastic. I'm not being a troll. I'm not going to jump all over you. I really want to know, because I never hear people say that who voted for him. And if you happen to be watching this, I thought about it. I want to put out a plea. If you happen to be watching this and you're happy with the job that Biden has been doing, can you tell me why? Like, what do you like that he's done? I'm very curious. I'm not going to shame you or embarrass you. I want to know, because I haven't heard that from anyone, even the people who voted for him.
He's not Trump.
That doesn't count, Mystery Chris.
Doesn't matter.
What has he done that you're happy with? Not being Trump? No, it doesn't count.
I have some family members that are off the Biden train, so I never thought that would happen. So maybe there is some hope after all.
Really? They voted for him and they're not happy anymore?
Yeah. They're like, yeah, they're upset at him and they don't watch CNN anymore. I'm like, what? Hell's freezing over?
Wow.
No.
Oh, look who's here. It's Horny Alf.
Horny Alf. I like that.
Horny Alf of the Legion of Memers. I'm gonna get back on their show one of these days. They usually do shows on Saturdays, which is the day I work. But we're gonna make it happen. They're so funny. The Legion of Memers, give it up for these guys. I got to meet Horny Alf at the Friday Night Tights meetup in Dallas. He looks like Alf. $4.99 super chat. Thank you. Says, hell, Keri, it was good to meet you in Dallas. Also, watching the people on MSNBC lose their minds the last couple of days has been epic. That's awesome. I can only imagine. I haven't been watching it, but I can only imagine they're freaking out. Okay, couple of things. I know you sent me a lot of stuff to get through with the affirmative action thing. A lot of articles. Before we hit those, I have one last thing I wanted to put up here because somebody in the chat mentioned this too. I don't know if you guys are watching this unfold in real time, but it's really disappointing. Socrates Magoat said, RFK Jr. is breaking my heart. First Democrat in a long while who seems to still have some common sense, but even RFK Jr. is committed to affirmative action. Yes. So a couple of things happened with him recently, which are, I think he's just a little clueless about some things. We read his Fauci book for book club. I thought it was excellent. I've watched several of his interviews. I'm very intrigued and interested. But something weird happened recently. We don't have time on today's episode to cover this. I'll just give you the broad strokes. He was on some mainstream corporate press interview. You can watch it, where he was asked this dishonest question with a lie built into it. It was a public form of a struggle session, which is what James Lindsay called it, and he was absolutely right. This dishonest question was, hey, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., you were recently asked to speak at a Moms for Liberty event, and then you didn't speak at it. And why would you agree to speak at it in the first place, given that Moms for Liberty is so homophobic and they are against gay rights and gay marriage? Which is not true. You baked something into the question that's not true. That's called a loaded question. It's like asking someone, hey, when did you stop beating your wife? You put something in there that's not true and then force them to answer it. And so RFK Jr., instead of, maybe he just doesn't know what he's talking about. I don't know. But instead of saying, is that true that Moms for Liberty is against gay marriage? I don't think that's true. Instead of saying that, or saying he didn't know, he just accepted the premise of the question. He said, well, as soon as I found that out, that's why I decided not to speak there. He validated the lie that the defamation of Moms for Liberty. It's such a shame. He did this on live television. And he also said according to Billboard Chris, he also told a little fib, because he said that he didn't accept the invitation himself, that someone on his staff did, which maybe is true. But according to Billboard Chris, he did talk with Tiffany at Moms for Liberty. He did talk with her directly, and he was directly involved. At some point, he was directly involved in the process. So to say, I wasn't that involved, it's kind of like, maybe the original person who accepted it wasn't you, but you did talk to them directly and you were going to be there. And then anyway, that was disappointing. I hope he clarifies that. I hope he comes out and apologizes to Moms for Liberty. I hope he sets the record straight, because that's not true. They're not against gay marriage. What are you talking about? So that happened. And then here's the other thing that happened. And this relates to the Supreme Court decision. Go ahead.
Well, it sucks because I know he's going on a lot of people's shows. Whose show? I know he's on Bill Maher's show. He's on some other shows, but now it seems like the media is going to do what they were trying to do to Trump and just constantly try to get him to disavow people whose shows or organizations he spoke at. And so it's just going to be nothing.
Yes.
Up until the primary, it's just going to be just that over and over again. And I know he's disavowed some people. I know some people are upset he disavowed Roger Waters from Pink Floyd, because I know Roger Waters is very anti, Israel, and that has its own, controversies and stuff. But, people are upset about him disavowing him, and then a bunch of other stuff. And so, yeah, it's going to be a rough few months.
It is. And he can't play that game. And no matter who you are, let's say you're not RFK Jr., but you're someone watching this who gets put in that position in some way in your life, don't let people manipulate you like that. Don't play that disavow game unless you really want to disavow someone on your own because they're a horrible person or they've done something awful. I've publicly disassociated myself from one person that I can think of because they're an evil psychopathic monster. And I regretted ever being associated with them. That was something I was compelled to do. No one pressured me to do that. Don't do that from social pressure. Don't play that I'm going to pressure you and try to get you to, like James Lindsay said, it's a struggle session thing. People tried to do that with James Lindsay and with me over our friend Nikki from Battlestar Galactica, because she was in that Nexium sex cult, which is what I think it is. But yeah, I was like, I don't play this game. It's bullshit. Don't do it. RFK Jr., why are you doing it?
Yeah.
Because if it works on one group,
yeah, keep doing it.
Yeah, guilt by association. If they can get you to do it with one person or one group, like Moms for Liberty, they're going to keep doing it to you because you've shown that social pressure will work on you, and that bullying and manipulation will work on you, so they can get you to disavow, and the circle of people they get you to disavow will get bigger and bigger, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So gross. Okay, so let's see what he had to say about the Supreme Court decision, because I heard this was disappointing as well, and I just kind of skimmed it right before we started. Let's read it together, because this coming on the back of the Moms for Liberty thing, I'm like, RFK Jr., what are you doing? No. No. Okay, he says, regarding the Supreme Court banning affirmative action in higher ed, I know many Americans feel that purely race-based decisions are unfair. It's not that we feel they're unfair. They are unfair. However, this feeling misses important context. The effects of racist policies going back centuries are now self-perpetuating.
But to be fair, like, I'm sure he's always had this position. It's not a position I agree with, but I know there's a number of positions. Like I know he's for some major regulations of the Second Amendment, other things. And so for a lot of us in our sphere, we like somebody who's a little bit more closer to the Constitution, but I don't think he's ever really been that much. It's just that he's very anti-big pharma and anti-military industrial complex. And that's what a lot of us are gravitating towards him for, but we can't be too shocked that he has these positions that are more leftist positions on other things.
Yeah, that's what some people are saying, that he's, at the end of the day, he's running as a Democrat. He's also a progressive on many issues, and we can't forget that. Here's what I think. During his Fauci book and his great, I think, very necessary criticism of big pharma and Fauci and stuff, they tried to paint him, the mainstream corporate press, in bed with big pharma and the government and everything. They tried to paint him as a right winger. Oh, he's a crazy right, because they do that to all of us. They do it to all of us so that people on the left won't read his book. And it's a lie. He's a progressive. And I actually think it's great that a progressive is the one who wrote that book, because it means that maybe that smear won't be as likely to work, and maybe some other progressive people who are being wooed by the woke ideology or the big pharma bullshit will listen. I love that a progressive wrote that book, but you're right. He is a progressive. And so not everyone wakes up on the same timeline. And he seems very awake about being he's anti-war, being, anti-big pharma, anti-corporation, but he's not very awake when it comes to DEI. I heard that recently in an interview. He didn't know what DEI stood for. He doesn't.
Really?
He's not very awake when it comes to woke stuff. Yeah. And Moms for Liberty,
That's
not knowing
surprising.
what they're about. Like, it's sort of like, oh, dude, no, you don't know. So maybe he's just not awake about this. He's like, the effects of racist policies going back centuries are now self-perpetuating. Affirmative action understands this and uses race-based policies to undo the effects of racist policies. No, this is trying to fix racism with racism. And I know some people think that's the way to do it. Let's fix racism with racism. I do not agree with you. Fundamentally, I disagree with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. on this. You don't fix sexism with sexism. You don't fix collectivism with collectivism. You only fix it with individualism, with treating people like individuals. You do not give the poison as a cure. You don't offer the very poison as a cure. He says colorblind admissions tend
Oh
to favor
no.
those who are already in the circle of
No.
privilege. It
No.
favors those who grew up in affluent, educated households. Okay, so he's doing what Biden did, and he's saying wealthy people are white.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you like to invite in those who have been left out in the cold? He says, oh no. He's so misguided on this. That's
Like, why
disappointing.
is it other people's responsibility to make up for any lack of opportunities facing blacks? I mean, unless you're the person
Right.
who's caused that lack of opportunity, but the vast majority of people have it. And a lot of the lack of opportunities were in fact caused by the families. Because I feel bad for a lot of black kids being raised by single mothers and, you know, sometimes fathers, but usually not fathers in their life, but their parents who aren't doing everything that's necessary to provide for that child, to provide a safe environment for that child to learn and to grow in. They're not creating the opportunities for their kids, but yet society gets the blame, and people who have nothing to do with the raising of that child are the ones who are being labeled as being at a fault for that child not taking advantage of whatever opportunities may come their way. It's just
Yes.
pisses me off. It's
He's
so easy to
also
see, and I just don't get it.
he's got it so wrong, because the racial group that's most impacted by this racist discrimination at colleges are Asian Americans. And so he's sitting here saying, you know, some people are not as wealthy, they're not as educated. Here, the Asian community in the US, so many of those kids, those Asian kids who are scoring so high, they're not coming from wealthy families. Okay. They're coming. There was a study done. Oh, wow. It's been a couple years now since I looked at this, and I don't have it pulled up, but I did an episode on my old podcast a few years ago about a school district in New York City, where they were doing the same thing. They were starting to discriminate at these magnet schools for gifted kids. And they were saying, we have too many Asian kids. Basically, we have too many Asian kids. We're going to start discriminating. We want more Black and Latino kids. And when you looked at and they were justifying it with the same language that RFK Jr. just did. They're like, oh, we have to help poor and disadvantaged communities. Okay, but when you looked at the numbers, it was something like over 50% of those Asian kids who were scoring so high and making it into these magnet schools were poor. They were on school lunch. They qualified for welfare. They're from poor Asian families, immigrant families, working their butts off academically to be able to get into these schools. And so you're punishing them, and you're trying to pretend like they're all wealthy elitists when their parents are working multiple jobs and they're going to after school programs and studying their butts off because they have different values in their families that are telling them you need to do this to get ahead in a merit-based system. And now you're saying we're going to get rid of the merit-based system. So it doesn't matter how hard you work, poor Asian immigrant families. There's too many of them.
It was interesting. I don't like a lot of the PBS documentaries now because they're very social justice-y, but I did see a little bit of one, which is following different individual Asian families around the time of the 2020 election. And some of them were conservative and some were, you know, liberal, progressive, whatever. But the ones that were conservative all tended to be immigrants. Like, you know, they escaped, you know, China or from wherever. And a lot of them were, you know, very pro-Trump. And the ones who were like first or second, third generation were, you know, for Biden. And I just thought it was interesting seeing how the immigrants were the ones most for Trump. And in the documentary, they kept trying to obviously say like, well, how could you be for Trump? You know, because he's against all immigrants. But I don't think they understand the values, such as you're saying, like the immigrant families that come here and work their asses off to provide for their families. And that's a certain perspective on the role of society, the individual, and what the individual can do. And in a free-ish society that we have here, not super free or super free market. But I think it says something, you know, that a lot of these immigrants will gravitate towards conservatism and pro-Trump stuff.
That's you're so right. And that's exactly what that tweet that we looked at earlier from the person who said Chinese by birth, American by choice, you know, and this is a win, not just for Asian Americans, but for America and American values. I found the same thing, that anecdotally, first generation immigrants, no matter what race they are, they're much more vocal against social justice, against woke ideology, because they recognize it as communism. It's ties to communism and Marxism. They get that. Its ties to collectivism. And because they came to America for the American dream, which says, hey, we're not going to discriminate against you based on race. Everyone is an individual here, and you can get ahead if you work hard enough. And we're not going to hold you back because of race or sex or sexuality. That's why they came here. And now they're looking around going, wait a minute. Like, is that not the case anymore?
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of first generation immigrants are celebrating at the Supreme Court decision. Like yes, equal playing field for our kids.
Be interesting to see any kind of conversation between Asians on Twitter about affirmative action, the ones that are for this reversal and the other ones that are for it remaining. Be kind of interesting to read that and see if there's any productive conversations happening, or if it's just like the rest of Twitter, just people yelling, throwing out labels.
Just people yelling. Okay, let's get into some of the stuff that you sent me. Which link should I pull up first?
Do you want to pull up the affirmative action article? And there's only a few paragraphs I would like for you to read. It's a long article, a very good article on cityjournal.org about affirmative action. It came out, I believe, in this past March, I think it was. But these first 5 paragraphs, you could read that. That has a little bit of data regarding minority attitudes towards affirmative action.
Interesting. Okay. This is from the City Journal. The headline is Unpopular, Polarizing, and Ineffective. Affirmative action's days may finally be numbered. So should I start at the beginning?
The first paragraph, right there, and just read 5 paragraphs.
Okay. Last year, in anticipation of 2 Supreme Court cases challenging the use of race as a factor in college admissions, the New York Times ran a story on public opinion of affirmative action. The co-authors queried a dozen college students and were flabbergasted by the responses, though they shouldn't have been. Quote, for those Americans who assume that college students today are left-wing activists who aren't in touch with the real world, our latest focus group will be especially eye-opening, the article began. Rarely have we been as surprised by a focus group as when we asked this racially and socioeconomically diverse group of 12 students whether they supported affirmative action in college admissions. Just one person said yes. Wow. This goes to the very beginning of our episode where I think we're saying Gen Z is a little more based, aren't they?
Because they're living in the ashes of all this woke stuff. And I think they're realizing how bad it is. So,
what a great way to put it, Mr. Chris. They're living in the ashes of all this woke stuff. Yeah. Okay. In reality, the views expressed by these young adults fairly reflect long-held public attitudes about racial preferences. In a 1977 Gallup poll, a majority of Blacks expressed opposition to special treatment. In a 1997 New York Times CBS News poll that asked, quote, how equally qualified college applicants should be treated by admissions officials, 69% of all respondents and 63% of Black respondents said that, quote, race should not be a factor, end quote. A 2001 Washington Post survey asked, quote, in order to give minorities more opportunity, do you believe race or ethnicity should be a factor when deciding who is hired, promoted, or admitted to college, or that hiring, promotions, and college admissions should be based strictly on merit and qualifications other than race or ethnicity, end quote. 92% of all respondents and 86% of Black respondents said that such decisions, quote, should be based strictly on merit and qualifications other than race and ethnicity, end quote. A Pew Research Center poll from 2019 found that 73% of respondents, including 78% of whites, 65% of Hispanics, and 62% of Blacks, and 58% of Asians, say that, quote, colleges should not consider race in admissions, end quote. In 1996, voters in California, not only the most populous state, but also one of the most racially and ethnically diverse, approved a ballot initiative that barred the use of race in admissions at public universities. Over the next quarter century, 8 other states adopted similar restrictions. And in 2020, Californians soundly rejected a ballot referendum that would have overturned that 1996 ban.
In this last
It's true
paragraph, and after you read this, keep this page up because there's some other stuff I'd like for you to read, but go ahead.
Okay. It's true that some polls over the years have shown support for, quote, affirmative action, but this typically reflects artful wording of the question or not defining the term in any detail. Yeah, this is what they do. They freaking manipulate language. In a 2013 New York Times survey, for example, 53% of respondents favored, quote, affirmative action programs for minorities in college admissions and hiring, end quote. But the story immediately added that, quote, other surveys that frame the question in terms of giving minorities preference find less support, end quote. So in other words, if you explain that it's racial discrimination, people are like, oh, wait, no, I'm not for that. They're like, hey, do you support affirmative action for minorities and women and black people? Oh, yeah, of course. I love women and black people and gay people. Sure. And then you're like, that means we're going to be discriminating. Oh, wait, it's discrimination.
What?
Why didn't you tell me that?
I don't like that. No.
Which is to say that the more accurately you describe affirmative action as it is practiced, the worse it polls. Yes. Imagine that.
This was so
Tell people
fascinating
what it
because
is.
I didn't know that there were attitudes against affirmative action to that degree, going all the way back to the 70s, as this article is talking about. And so I do think there's a sizable number of people still that are against this, but are afraid to talk about it. And like you just said, another sizable portion that if you frame it in the correct way, which is that it is discrimination in order to quote unquote solve discrimination, a lot of people will be against that. But as long as you don't frame it that,
Yes.
a lot of people just go along with it because that sounds good. People want to be nice people, they want to be caring, but they're not really thinking through what's being told to them about these policies. And so I just find this fascinating.
It is. You know what it is? It's Soylent Green. Remember that movie?
What? People are eating people?
Yes, it's Soylent Green. Oh, would you like some Soylent Green? It's delicious and nutritious and low. Oh, it loves Soylent Green. It looks so appetizing. Yeah, it looks great. Wait, Soylent Green is people. Why didn't you tell me it's people?
It's people.
Hey, would you like some affirmative action? It's delicious and
people.
nutritious. It supports black people and women and minorities. Woo! I love it. I love affirmative action. Give me some. Hey, it's discrimination. Affirmative action is discrimination. What?
It's the bodies of white and Asian people. You're eating that in order to nourish black people. You got to put it like that.
Oh man,
there's 3 more paragraphs. If you could scroll down to the section that starts with disavow, it starts to they capitalize the first letter, they make a big D, so it's a little further down in this page. Like I said, if people have time to read this article, it kind of goes through the history of affirmative action and the way Supreme Court treated certain cases and how they started off. Okay, right. Defenders of, there we go. If you could start defenders of affirmative action, please.
Okay. Defenders of affirmative action say that ending these policies will dramatically reduce college enrollment and campus diversity and be detrimental to expanding the Black middle class. But after California banned race-conscious admissions by passing Proposition 209 in 1996, Black college enrollment increased. What? It's true that Black enrollment declined at the UCLA and UC Berkeley flagships, which are more selective. But as Richard Sander and Stuart Taylor Jr. documented in their book Mismatch, those declines were offset by increased minority enrollment at other campuses in the University of California system. Under race-neutral admissions policies, students were steered into schools that better matched their academic preparation. Subsequently, college graduation rates for minorities increased. This is what we were talking about. Matriculation. You can't, if you promote people who are not qualified into jobs or into colleges that they're not qualified for, you're not setting them up for success, for graduation, for doing a good job. So of course, once you ban that, college graduation rates for minorities will increase. Quote, the number of Blacks receiving bachelor, go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, a lot of people who go to these universities with affirmative action policies, a lot of them, regardless of the race, are going to see how people who are less qualified are being allowed in. And given that a lot of these schools are going to adjust the curriculum to fit the level of many of the people that are there being admitted, that's going to devalue that degree and the prestige of the university.
Yes.
And so a lot of people are going to turn against that. And I think that's a reason for those numbers that we just saw earlier, where a lot of people are realizing that even if somebody was, a black person, and even if maybe at one point in time they supported affirmative action, they understand that the value of the degree is decreasing by people who are just not as, gifted or talented being admitted.
Harvard already devalued their degree entirely. A Harvard degree means nothing now because they let in David Hogg.
Yeah.
Okay. Now that wasn't a race-based that wasn't a race-based admission. That was activism-based admission. But he publicly was bragging about, I think he had an 1100 SAT score or something ridiculously low for Harvard. And he was all proud of it. They let in David Hogg.
What do they have to gain? Like, what is? They think they were going to get all this coverage. Like, I know, but
Yeah.
it's that guy. Like, I could understand if he was like a woman or something, but like, why would they expect
It was
people?
activism.
Oh, even like the leftists, but why would they expect the leftists to go, oh, what a great job? Because the leftists hate white guys anyway, so it doesn't matter if he speaks their language. He's still a straight white guy. I assume he's straight. I don't know what he is.
But he's a high profile white guy who speaks woke, and they wanted the activism points, the virtues. Like, they really, that's the, after that, I was like, oh, a Harvard degree means nothing. Like, thank God it wasn't Duke that let him in. I'd be like burning my degree.
Yep.
Brahma Bull says future senator from California, David Hogg is what they were thinking. Oh no.
I bet he will run for office.
Oh, totally. He's a politician.
He's
He's a con artist through and through. That little grifter.
He's sociopath.
Okay.
He'll fit right in.
Also, this is a pretty interesting comment from Brahma Bull. Says, I also find it funny that the left thinks that the universities they run are so racist that minorities can't possibly be admitted. Yeah, like that terrible tweet we saw from Erica Report. No black person, she says, no black person will ever succeed based on merit. Okay. Should I read this last
this
part?
This last part, yeah.
This is interesting, some of the stats, right? So under race-neutral admissions policies, students were steered into schools that better matched their academic preparation. Subsequently, college graduation rates for minorities increased. The number of blacks receiving bachelor degrees from UC schools rose from an average of 812 in 1998 to 2001 to an average of 904 in 2004 to 2007, Sander and Taylor wrote. For Hispanics, the increase went from 3,317 to 4,428. And this is the UC college system. So you're seeing also higher numbers there for Hispanics, I think, because there's a higher percentage of Hispanics in California.
Yeah.
Does that make sense also?
And then, this last paragraph, you just took it out, but that's all right. Okay. Just real quick.
I'll put it back.
That very last one under that bolded quote. I can read that because I think that goes into a little bit about blacks at Berkeley in the 80s. Yeah, there we go.
During the 1980s, the number of black students at Berkeley rose, but the number of black graduates declined. After affirmative action ended, black students who might have attended Berkeley and struggled instead went to UC Irvine, UC Riverside, or UC Santa Barbara and graduated. According to Sander and Taylor, the number of UC Black and Hispanic freshmen who went on to graduate in 4 years rose 55%. The number of graduating with degrees in the more difficult fields of science, technology, math, and engineering rose by 51%. And the number who graduated with GPAs of 3.5 or higher rose by 63%. Such figures indicate that, on balance, racial double standards have served as a lag rather than a boon for minorities. This is what we were talking about earlier, Mr. Chris. Like, does it actually help? Does it actually help Black people or Latino people or women? Does affirmative action actually help? No, I don't think it does. And I think these numbers prove that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for finding all these numbers.
No problem. No problem.
The Swell says, I need to order sushi today to celebrate.
Hell yeah. Love sushi.
I had some grocery store sushi yesterday. You can have
Really?
sushi every day to celebrate. Yeah.
Is it HEB?
It's not bad.
Every time I went to HEB, they always usually had like an Asian person doing the sushi. Now they have like a white person. I'm like, should I eat that? I don't know if I should eat it anymore.
It's affirmative action at the sushi stand. We don't have enough white people doing the sushi. Okay. Should we bring up Thomas Sowell on affirmative
just
action
real quick,
it's his birthday today?
This video is like 8-minute video, but I only want to show the beginning part where he was in front of a congressional committee, and a certain president is also on this committee questioning Thomas Sowell. So let's watch maybe a minute and a half or so of this video.
Okay, cool. Hold on.
Thomas Sowell back when he was young in his prime. I wish he still was young, and really need him as a voice getting out there.
You do. And you know, it's a shame people like me, I never started reading him until a couple years ago, because if you're on the left or the woke part of the left, like I was, he is a disappeared person. Like, I didn't even know he existed. They do not talk about him as much as they love to speak for Black people. They do not like Thomas Sowell.
Nope.
And you wouldn't even know he existed in the woke left. Okay. So we'll just play the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Do you believe that mandatory proportional representation benefits minorities?
No. In fact, I think one of the great handicaps that Blacks and other minorities face across the country is that they are systematically mismatched with universities in the admissions process. That is, if Harvard feels that it must have X% of Blacks, and if the pool is such that they can't get X% of Blacks at the same level as the rest of the Harvard students, they're going to take those Blacks who would have succeeded in some state university and bring them to Harvard, where many of them will fail. Or MIT is a better example, that the average Black student at MIT is in the bottom 10% of MIT students in math. But he is in the top 90% of all American students in math, because MIT students are so phenomenal in mathematics. Something like 1/4 of all the Black students going to MIT do not graduate. You're talking about a pool of people who score at the 90th percentile in math, whom you are artificially turning into failures by mismatching them with the school. Back in much earlier, you had a great increase of Blacks in the universities through the GI Bill. You had nothing like that kind of attrition from that process, because the student went wherever he could be accepted, wherever he met the normal standards, and the government simply paid the money.
I gather from your comments about MIT and Harvard, I don't think there's enough Blacks out there who are qualified to fill the number of vacancies allotted for them in those schools. Is that right? Is that what you're saying?
Well, the word qualified is really misleading. Well, the question is whether or not they are like the other students at Harvard and MIT.
Well, okay. Oh, so there's not.
So they may be perfectly qualified. The same student might go through, God help us, I hope there's nobody here from Illinois, Illinois Institute of Technology, and do well. But there's no reason why he should fail at MIT. There's no prestige in flunking out of the Ivy League.
I got you.
Yes.
So, but my point is, you believe there are not enough Black women and men out there that are the same as white women and men to be able to go through Harvard and MIT.
What?
If there were, it would mean that the whole history of oppression had done no harm whatever.
Well, so the answer is you don't think there are. I just want to figure out what you're saying.
It's not a question what I think. It's a factual matter.
So factually.
Well, also, first of all, there's a different percentage of Black men and women in this country. It's like 13% of the population. It's not even the same percentage, but
You're saying factually there are not enough.
Factually, this study's already been done by Clickguard at Harvard, and the figures are all there. Anyone can look them up.
Okay, no, I just want to hear from you. I want to know what you're thinking.
At the University of California.
That's it.
For example,
show that.
that is incredible. We should clip this and put that out, because that's so cool. And you've got in that clip one of the dumbest people, Joe Biden, deigning to question one of the smartest people, Thomas Sowell. And he thinks secretly that he's smarter than Thomas, doesn't he? He's in that part of the with the midwit, he's in that Dunning-Kruger. What is it? He's
Dunning-Kruger
slightly
factor.
above average intelligence, Joe Biden, which supposedly people who are slightly above average intelligence are more likely to overestimate their own IQ and underestimate the IQ of others. He's in that range, I think. Oh, that's great.
Yep, pre-hair plug Biden. That's what we should call it.
Oh man. Okay. Let's see. What else should I pull up?
That's all I have for affirmative action. But I did have that clip of the mic grab.
Oh, should we cover this today? We've already hit 2 hours. Hey, can you come back?
I'll come back
I want you to
sometime.
come back. Okay. Let's cover the mic grab and some of the funny stuff. What do you want to do?
Oh, do you want to play the funny video real quick?
Yeah, let's play the funny video.
Okay.
We've got this whole thing. We want to talk about the mic grab, but I know that'll take a while and I have to go on the road soon. So, which is the funny one?
The Greta Thunberg one. So this video was generated by AI, and I know AI is going to kill us all in the future. But right now, we can laugh with it because it made a funny video about Greta Thunberg.
Oh, man. Is that how you say her name? I didn't even know.
I have no idea, and I don't care. I do feel a little bad for her because I saw this video, like, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago where she was like on stage singing Never Gonna Give You Up. And she looked like she was having a good time. This is like the first time I saw her like laugh and have fun and stuff. And I just feel bad, like, her parents were just using her as a tool to put out their propaganda and not letting her just be a normal little girl.
I feel the same way. This is just my gut take on some interviews I've seen with her and David Hogg. Let's compare the two. He was an activist child, not a child anymore, of course. Who I don't think his parents steered him there. They're using him or anything. I think he is a con artist and some type of personality disordered person. And, he saw an opportunity and went for it, little grifter.
Yep.
In fact, he's very rude about his parents, like treats them like crap based on this video interaction I saw where he was sort of belittling his dad for not knowing how to use a phone. He said, so rude. Greta, I think, is the opposite. Greta, I think, is someone who has been like she's got like stage parents who've pushed her into this. And I do have a lot more sympathy for her. So I agree with you. I have the same gut reaction. Greta is the same age as me. Someone says, oh, I knew we had some young people in the chat. Z Highness, that's right. Okay, let's watch this.
Hello, my name is Greta, and welcome to my oil company. I will show you around. Already at a young age, I had a love for oil. I love how it is pumped out of the ground. So I started my own oil company called Greta Greatest Oil. I fly around the world in my own private jet, get the best deals around the world. When the deal is finalized, I will send my own oil container ship to fetch the oil and deliver it to homes where the trucks are ready to take the oil to storage places. We test so that we always deliver the highest quality to our customers. We sell it all over the world because we believe that everyone has right to oil. And that is why you can fill your car every day. So I can eat my sweets.
AI made this?
Yeah.
This is part of the danger of AI. I mean, I don't agree with Greta on climate change, but how awful if your whole message is climate change and AI can make such a convincing advertisement for you saying the opposite, right?
I know.
That's terrible.
You're going to be entertained today by AI.
And Pinkava says, her voice is so pleasant, it can't be true. I got a mean super chat. Maybe somebody's trying to be funny. The John Beck for $2 says, Mystery Chris, say you won't come back ever again. Ha ha.
Granted.
Thanks for the super
Never,
chat.
ever.
You know what? It's just like when people don't like my hats or whatever, or say if that was serious and mean, You know what? If you don't like it, then don't watch it.
Hey,
And
we
if you're
got some
being
money.
funny, we got some money. And if you're being funny, I went over my head. I'm sorry. A lot of humor does go over my head. So anyway, oh yeah, thank you, Z Highness. Come back, MC. Actually, I was gonna tell you, I got some comments about you in the comment section on the videos, and somebody told me to tell you, I think it was Nelson, said, please tell Mystery Chris that I am sad that I never see him in the comments, and I would love to hear from him. So no pressure.
Yep, no pressure.
I just did it I did it publicly.
Guess I gotta get
People love you. They wanna, yeah, thank you. Make Mystery Chris permanent. Well, that's what I'm trying to do. So I think my goal is I need to start. Here's what's going to happen. Not that you care about the business side of deprogram, but I need to start thinking a little bit more about it and how to make it financially viable for Mystery Chris and I to do this full time. And Mystery Chris works a day job, and I would like for that day job to be deprogrammed eventually, working on comedy content and stuff, and maybe other shows. So that's one of my goals. Obviously, also I'd like to make a living off of it. So it's not a crazy goal, and there's so many people who are already supporting the channel and helping out, which is awesome. I just need to focus on, there's merchandise we've had in the works that I haven't done yet and things like that. And I do want to get better at, because I forget sometimes to say, hey, here's how you can support us if you want to. So I need to make like I'm going to make something that I can just hit it. And it says, hey, if you want to support, Patreon, subscribe to our YouTube, and then that's it. And that's all you have to hear about that. So anyway, I'm doing that. I'm feeling pumped about it after this time on the road. So, oh, thank you for clarifying the John Beck $2. Yes, sarcasm. Thank you. I was like, is that guy really being mean in a super chat? Sarcasm. Is the van good enough to save? Well, I hope so. We're waiting to hear what's wrong with the van. I hope it's not anything crazy. And we, like I said, we had to rent this, what turned out to be a truck, for like a week or more. So my husband, either my husband alone or the two of us together, not sure yet, are going to drive back to Colorado and get the van, return the rental and get the van. Anyway, if you pray, say a prayer. I hope the van's fixable. They're working on it. We've put a lot of work into it. My husband has done a lot of work on that van. It's an old 2001 Econoline. He put a bed in there, flooring, paneling, painted it. We put cabinets in there so he can take it on the road and not have to spend money on hotels when he's doing his music tours. So
promise me on your way back to Colorado you're going to listen to the Dumb and Dumber soundtrack.
I promise I will. Is it a good soundtrack?
I like it.
Isn't Green Day on there? I don't like Green Day.
I forget if they're on there. We need to do like maybe one day we can do a stream on Rumble or something where we just like listen to music and have a chill stream, just chill with people. I think that'd be fun.
Can we do that?
Because there's a lot of great.
Hey,
I think on Rumble, yeah.
Okay. No pressure, but I'm kidding. I was about to ask
you. Never mind.
Let's pick a day and do that, and then we can also talk about the mic drop stuff. That'll be fun, and we'll do a Rumble only stream. Okay, we'll pick a day off camera, so no pressure. Can I say that we're gonna hang out this weekend and have fun, you and I? That's not too much private info, is it?
That. Yeah.
Okay, that's gonna be. I'm excited to see you.
Yeah,
I'm gonna see Mystery Chris tomorrow. Yeah. The John Beck, thank you for the $2 super chat. So I hope you don't have to live in it down by the river. The van. Hey, but if we do, we've made it look all nice inside. We could live in there quite comfortably.
You could even start another channel doing that, because I know there are people who do that, not just living in vans, but they'll like travel places. Like I saw one couple, they went around to like Buc-ee's gas stations in their van and just like got Buc-ee's food, went back to the van and just ate it and did videos, and they got millions of views.
What? Why? Gross.
Hey, it's the internet. That's what you do these days.
I don't know about that. Look, this is the kind of meanness I've come to appreciate. None of your business. Billy Jack called. He wants his hat back. We'll do some Italian hand gestures at you for that. There were a couple things I starred earlier before we go. Judson Pinson said, "If anyone deserves defamation, it's mothers." that was about them defaming moms for liberty. That's really funny. That's sarcasm. I get that. Kendra Souder said it took an Asian minority to bring this lawsuit, not white folks. Minority versus minority. Yes. Great point. Lindsay, the cynical geek, said people need to come to the realization that the government's not your Lord and Savior. They can and will turn against you if you give them all the power. Yes.
Yeah.
History shows us that. Oh, I missed a super chat from Mark. Thank you, Mark, for $10 super chat. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. He says, in a racially diverse nation, diversity in institutions and communities is healthy. But affirmative action hasn't and won't completely fix that issue. UNC is 60% white, 8% black, 11% Asian. North Carolina is 3% Asian, 13% black.
And see, that's a frustrating thing too, because they always assume that non-white groups want the same things that whites want in terms of jobs and occupations. Because not everybody wants the same thing, obviously. Not all black people want to play rock and roll music and metal and Tejano and country music to the level that whites do. I mean,
not all women want to work in STEM.
Yeah. It's dumb. They're basically saying, well, you got to be like more like us. You have to be like us, black man. I was like, that's what you're saying.
That's what you're saying, and it's wrong. Let's see. Two Sisters and Some Yarn. Thank you. Give it up for Two Sisters modding today. She says 106 people watching, 58 likes. Let's go, Lazy Half. Yeah, hit like. That helps us. I should say that too. That helps the channel if you hit like or leave a comment.
Like, share, and subscribe. That's what you're supposed to say, I think. I don't know.
That's what I'm supposed to say. Like, share, and subscribe. The John Beck for $2 says Bucky's brisket sliders are great. How dare you?
I love Bucky's.
I love Bucky's too. I love them.
I would tell you, like, years ago, I was on a road trip with some friends to San Antonio, and this is back before like Bucky's was huge in Texas. And so we saw a sign, a billboard with a cartoon beaver with a hat on, and it said nothing else, and just had like a countdown of how many miles. It was like, we don't know what that is, but we got to find that beaver.
Well, it's genius marketing because their billboards, if you don't live in Texas, you don't know this, their billboards are hilarious. Like, they really make funny jokes about beavers and stuff, and not in the way that you're thinking. Not in that way. Sorry.
It's not a strip club. Bucky's is a gas station, not a.
It's a gas station / it's everything. I mean, it was funny. We were talking with some friends recently, my husband and I, and they were talking about their favorite part of Bucky's, like, you know, I like the beaver nuggets, or I like this. And I was like, my favorite is the home goods department. I bought a cutting board. Actually did buy a cutting board there. I sent it to Gary from Nerdrotic to welcome him to Texas.
Nice. I thought you were going to say the bathroom, because I hate public bathrooms, but their bathrooms are nice.
They have great bathrooms. Oh, hey, back when I was going through some hard times and I couldn't sleep, I had insomnia, I would go to Bucky's at 3 a.m. and get a coffee just because it made me feel good. It's like the mall. Yeah. Like, look at all these people who are awake and happy. I would just browse and have a coffee and go home.
You need to write an inspirational story about how Bucky saved you.
Yeah.
Bucky's was there for me at 3 a.m.
At 3 a.m.
At a spokesman for
with other happy smiling people. Is that weird? No.
No, not at all.
Z Highness says, Keri, you must interview David So. He has an interesting podcast, sometimes speaking about his Korean upbringing. Thank you so much. I need to write that down. I have so many suggestions, and I need to make sure I know I've lost track of some of them. And then Z Highness says, make a Kick account. What is Kick? I don't know what Kick is.
That's a new kind of Twitch kind of streaming service to start it. So yeah, you might want to investigate that. I know they just got Amaranth, who's one of the women who wears bikinis on Twitch and does streams where you get thousands of people watching, giving money.
Okay, I'll look into that. Oh my goodness, Ken Johnston. You must not be from Texas, sir. We'll fill you in. What is Buc-ee's?
Ugh.
Buc-ee's is spelled, first of all, it's spelled differently. It's spelled BUC-EES. It's a gas station slash mall. I mean, it's the biggest gas station you'll ever see. It's a chain in
Yeah.
Texas, and it's got a beaver. Buc-ee's is a beaver. He's the mascot, and they have a wall of various jerkies and a wall of various pickled things and brisket and sliders and beaver nuggets and ice cream and all kinds of soda fountains. And in the back, they sell candles and ladies' things, and they have onesies and, garden stuff and things for your dog and hunting stuff. I mean, you could live in a Buc-ee's. And they have amazing bathrooms. Yes, every bathroom is
Yeah.
clean and huge. And yeah, you should make a locals. I have a locals. Join the locals. I should mention it more. Join the locals. Keri Smith, I think, .locals. Put the link in here, someone. I need to use the locals more, but we have one. Yeah, Buc-ee's is awesome, and it's a Texas thing, but if you go to the coastal part of Texas, if you go over, we were in Port Aransas, they have a different chain. Did you know this, Mr. Chris? It's called the Texan. Okay, I had no idea. It's like stepping into an alternate reality. They don't have Buc-ee's, they have the Texan. It's just like Buc-ee's, except the mascot is a smiling cowboy, and it's called the Texan. And the only other difference is that they also have a seated area inside, like a fast food restaurant, where you can sit and eat all the delicious food you purchase. And it's called the Texan, and they have them everywhere. And we asked one of the employees, like, what are these? We have, in the other part of Texas, we have Buc-ee's. And they said, oh, and they told us a harrowing tale. I don't know if this is true or not, but they said that the founder of Buc-ee's and the founder of the Texan used to be in business together, and then they had a bad split. And the Buc-ee's founder backstabbed the Texan founder and started Buc-ee's and ripped him off.
Wow.
I don't know if that's true.
I hope they turn that into a movie, because
What?
like they're making all these product movies, like the Air movie based on Air Jordan, and they have one on Flaming Hot Cheetos, how that got started, and another one on Tetris. They need to do one on Buc-ee's.
They should. I mean, people. Well, okay. So Ken says he is from the UK. That's why he doesn't know what Buc-ee's is. Here, I'm going to show you this. Look at this, Ken. Before we go, you're going to love this. This is Buc-ee's, and you can see all of their fun. See, this is what their billboards are really funny, like this: potty like a rock star. They're letting you know if you're on the road that they have bathrooms. Potty like a rock star. and this is their mascot up here in the left corner, Buc-ee's.
This makes me laugh. This is beaver.
Look,
it's
just a beaver.
Weird.
Look inside. Look at all the pictures of Buc-ee's. They have all kinds of, like I said, I don't know if you could make these pictures larger.
And I hear they
have
pay well.
Turkey.
Their careers. I hear they
probably.
They have really.
I mean, maybe I'll get a job there.
Maybe I'll go to Buc-ee's right now. Jeez.
It makes me, like I said, it makes me happy to be there. Why not? Yeah. They've got a 401k. Anyway, you can wear a cowboy hat if you want.
Dress up as a beaver to work.
Yeah, so the John Beck says they pay their people pretty well. This has just become a Buc-ee's commercial, hasn't it? Sorry.
I know. You're welcome, Buc-ee's. Please send gift cards.
You're welcome. A couple more things from the chat. The Swill says, would Mystery Chris be able to come out if he became a full-time employee? Would you reveal your face if you could make a good living from this channel?
I might.
You might still not. Maybe. I don't know. I'm not going to pressure
you.
Lily of the Fox Valley says drunk 3PO dressed in a Buc-ee's onesie on a video on Geeks and Gamers. Awesome.
Gonna have to look that up.
Yeah, they have adult onesie pajamas. It's cool.
And you weren't kidding too when you talked about the number of gas pumps, like the one in Katy, Texas. When I passed by that I've counted over 100 gas pumps there.
I mean, it's a wonderland.
Yeah.
And everyone who works there is pleasant. Two Sisters in Some Yarn says, smash that like button or you won't get into college. Thank you. Smash the like button. Here's where you can follow Mystery Chris online. Although he doesn't tweet a lot, but you can go there and bother him, MC Mystery Chris. Okay. And then final comment, Jamie. Jamie says, hey, Keri, happy Friday, a.k.a. payday. Yay! My payday's Saturday because I do a weird job. But I work Saturdays. But happy payday for everyone else. Okay. I'll see you guys later. I think we're going to wrap it up and we're going to get on the road. Mystery Chris, thank you so much for joining us on a Friday. And
thank you. Thank you for having me. It's fun.
It was fun. And we'll see you later. And I'm going to see you. We're going to have fun tomorrow.
Yeah. It's going to be a good time.
Woo-hoo. Everybody, have a good weekend. Thanks for supporting the channel. If you like it, hit like, subscribe, share a video. We'll talk to you later. Bye.
All right. Bye, chat. Bye, everyone.